Okay, so it's time for our Q&A. I have a bunch of questions from different sources, and let's get to them. So a question that I've never been asked before that I really like a lot is someone's asking, how do I keep track of my inventory? Which is actually a real conundrum for us, because keeping track of an inventory like ours is extremely difficult to do. The good news for us is that most of our manufactured products are sold within a reasonable amount of time from their arrival in the warehouses. So, for example, if I produce 100 kilos of spheres, they come in, they're probably sold within 2 to 3 weeks. It's not hard to keep track of our inventory because we go through it so quickly. I do have backlogged material. I have material that I've been holding on to. I have like private reserve material and stuff like that, and that's all cataloged and inventoried, but that's more of my personal collection. Most material that's arriving here is pretty much being sold as it's arriving to some degree. So it's kind of a catch-22. As far as buying out mines go, let's just say that we bought out the amethyst mines and 10,000 kilos arrive of amethyst. That material maybe takes us a little bit longer to sell, and in the past I had ran into issues where we were buying out the mines but not selling the material as quickly as it was arriving. So we'd wind up with a backstock of 20,000 kilos of amethyst or 10,000 kilos of crystal quartz, things like that. So with the mines that we were like, at one point I had, I think we had 18 tons of black tourmaline. I had like 7 tons of blue kyanite at one point. But I mean, it's all gone now. Sometimes it takes up to 6 months to a year to move through that inventory, and the new inventory comes in. One of the things that's also really helpful in keeping track of our inventory is we do things by weight. It's impossible to keep track of things by the piece. Usually every quarter, every 3 months, we're digging in and trying to see, okay, this is how much we have of this material, this is how much we have. But there's no real way to keep track of every single item, but you can keep track of the weight, and you can kind of have a mean price of what you paid for certain things. So you can say, okay, for the amethyst, let's just take amethyst for example. I paid anywhere from $6 to $20 a kilo on amethyst, depending on what it was that I got my hands on. And you could just mean that out. The difference between 6 and 20 is 14. So you just add 7 to 6. And there you go, you got 13. But it's a really great question. It's not one I've ever been asked, so I appreciate that question. If you are asking in reference to yourself and how do you keep track of your own inventory, that's a whole nother story. The difficult thing with inventory is that if you're not skewing everything and putting it into a system, like if you're a wholesale distributor, that's kind of difficult. But if you're in a retail situation, you can pretty much label and skew everything. You can have a square system or a clover system or some sort of system that keeps track of all of your inventory, and as it sells out, the system will deduce it from your inventory. Like, I know Square works that way. So you could literally get 100 pendants in, put 100 pendants into your Square system, and as you sell them, they'll just individually get plucked out. Also, I think you can do that on certain website platforms, so that's another way to keep track of inventory. Someone is asking me about the bracelets and how we make our bracelets so tough and durable. The integrity of the bracelets is I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and that was my goal with the bracelets, was to make the integrity of the bracelets basically unmatched. There's shortcuts in everything, especially with the bracelet. String can vary, elastic can vary, fish line can vary in price so much by the integrity. Just because something's on fish line, I mean, every little detail of making the bracelets matters. And so when you see cheaper bracelets, or when you see bracelets on the market, and if you're comparing like my bracelets to bracelets you'd buy in China, let's just say, because there is a dimension of difference between what you would get from me and then what you would buy for cheap Chinese wholesale. Again, not a knock on the Chinese, but what most people don't understand is that everything in China is down to the cent. If a guy in China makes bracelets for 99 cents and his competitor makes them for 98 cents, the guy who's selling his bracelets for 99 cents is out of business in a week. So everything there has to be cut and chiseled, and you have to save a penny. Saving a penny means a lot. For me, it doesn't. My thing is, I don't care about saving the penny. My thing is, I want to provide the best quality material that I can possibly get my hands on. I want your bracelet to last you 10, 20, 30 years. That's what I want. So anyway, the type of elastic that we use is actually very, very strong and high quality elastic. It's not cheap elastic. So that's the first thing. I'm not going to tell you how and where I get my elastic from because I would give away the pot secret. But what I will tell you is that when you're stranding your beads, you can wrap multiple strands of elastic fish line together and tie them through a needle. You need a very thin needle that can fit through the bead holes. And then what you do is you just make the string very, very long. And you can just bead them down. And then you can cut the string once you're done beading. Instead of doing each bracelet by hand, take a really, really long string, tie it to something, and just bead out, I don't know, 20, 30 bracelets in one shot. And then when you're done beading, you can snip the bracelets. If you want to know the best kind of knot for your bracelets, typically I would recommend like an Ashley stopper knot. You can look up an Ashley stopper knot, you can research it and see it. And then also a double square knot is a really good knot that you can use for your bracelets. I would look up those. You can find them on YouTube how to do those kinds of knots, and they're very, very tough knots to slip. One other thing about the bracelets is that you can test the integrity of the stringing. So for example, let's just say you make your long string, right? You need to pull on the string a little bit. So you could actually go and stretch your elastic gradually and slowly to give it that resting feel so that when people go and pull on it really hard, it doesn't snap right away. Because if it's fresh elastic, fresh, no one's even touched it at all, the chances of it snapping is greater. But you can actually let it sit and pull on it for a couple of days. So that's just another secret that no one will ever tell you that. It's because I love you that I tell you my secrets. So another question I have here, which I get asked all the time, I probably have this in another Q&A, which is what is my favorite crystal? I don't know. I don't really have a favorite. I love really, the thing is I've seen so much amethyst and agate. I mean, I'm more than you can imagine. I really enjoy amethyst. I really enjoy agate. I enjoy the combination of the two of them. And when I find really unique and rare formations of that, it doesn't even have to be lucrative. It could be like a dollar rock, but it's something I've never seen before. And that's really what piques my interest because again, I've seen so much material over the last 12, 13 years. For me to be interested in something, it's not because it's like this amazing high quality thing. It's because of its rarity or uniqueness to me. So that's kind of my favorite crystal, is something that is extremely unique that I haven't seen before, and that's what makes its way into my cabinet here. What's in my cabinet here is not necessarily the most expensive stuff in the world. It's just stuff that is so different and unique. Based off of, I've seen, 100,000 pieces of this. That was the one piece out of the 100,000 that I thought was the most unique, and that's usually what I keep in my collection. How did you start your relationship with crystals? Also something I've been asked a lot, but I'll give you a little bit more of a deeper dive into that question. I worked in nonprofit organizations for many years, and in my last stint in a nonprofit, I wound up really getting into energy healing. And in the process of getting into energy healing, I found that there needed to be some sort of buffer that was able to ground out, if you will, lower vibration energy that I didn't wind up with it, resting on me. And so first I started with plants, and I was killing plants left and right. And then I moved on to crystal quartz, and I realized that crystal quartz at that time, especially I was in Manhattan, living in Manhattan, wasn't the cheapest thing in the world. And so I was going through these really expensive pieces of crystal quartz, and they were just, going out quick. And then I found apophyllite, and apophyllite did the same thing that crystal quartz did, with a longer durability, and also was much more inexpensive. So that's really how I got into crystals, was I was using them as a buffer between me and the energy cleaning that I was involved in. And the reason I no longer do it is because I came to a realization that, and this is just my personal realization, it doesn't mean that it translates to anybody but me. I started to understand that the only person that can heal you is you. In the process of trying to be an energy healer and to help other people clean themselves, I was avoiding really looking into my own shit and digging into my own stuff. And again, just my own personal experience and just being brutally honest, I started to feel hypocritical about it. And once I felt hypocritical, I didn't feel right doing it. Although I do think that I was very, very fortunate to make a lot of difference in a lot of people's lives, even if it was just off of advice that I was giving people. I would call myself borderline intuitive. So I meet people, and a lot of the times when I meet somebody, I just things just are popping into my head about a person, and I'm going to say that 99.9% of the time they're spot on. Sometimes I'll choose to tell a person what is, I'll word it in a way that seems relevant to a conversation that we're having. Sometimes I'll be like, no, this person doesn't want to hear anything from me, and I'll just keep it to myself. But if I feel like there's an opening, I will definitely filter information to a person if I feel the opening is there. So that's the residue of my energy work, is that I'm still very intuitive in my personal opinion, and I will use that intuition when I feel like there's an opportunity to do that. Did you own a retail store? Yes, I did own a retail store. When I first got into the business, I was doing flea markets. Again, this is a narrative that if you've been watching my stuff, you already know this, so forgive me if it's redundant. But I started doing flea markets, psychic fairs, crystal shows, stuff like that, smaller venues. Then it led me into wanting to have some more stability. I started realizing that doing those venues and running that gamut was not really something that was sustainable for me. I didn't have the ability to travel as much as I wanted to. At that time, I had a full-time job. I was doing business consulting. I was running 2 people's businesses at the time, and I just didn't have the luxury of just winging myself all over the place. And so I opened a kiosk in a mall. And that kiosk did really well in the first 6 months. Again, you got to remember, when I got into this business, the crystal business was like niche. It wasn't what it is now. Like back then, there was like a handful of us really doing it. Now there's, a million people trying to sell rocks, but when I got into the industry, it wasn't like that. So there was a huge success rate. Like we were successful instantly. It wasn't like I needed a year, 2 years, 3 years to get into the green. We were in the green like after the first month, which was amazing. I was shocked. But it also allowed me to be confident enough to to leave my jobs and pursue crystals and going to mines and things like that, which is what I really, really loved and what I wanted to do. What got me up in the morning. Working for other people and running their businesses wasn't really satisfying it. I mean, I loved it. I loved running people's businesses. I loved, figuring out the problems and seeing the stuff that the people who were running those businesses weren't even seeing. So that I did enjoy, but I wanted my own thing, and so the crystals provided me with that opportunity. And I really do genuinely believe that I was chosen, if you will, to be in the position that I'm in because of the integrity that I had at the time, and because when I got into the business, all of the big players in the industry, they weren't in the business because they cared about the crystal industry. There was just money for them. It was only money. And I know that because I met them, I talked to them, I experienced them, and I was like, oh, this person only cares about money. They don't care about, the integrity of the crystal. And I think that's why I was able to be so successful amidst much larger, cheaper competition. Is because I did respect the stones, and I did, like, there's even times where we'll have like broken crystals, or I'll find little crystal chips on the floor, and I'll take them and I'll go put them in the dirt. I don't sweep them and throw them in the garbage. I'll take, like, at the end of a box, and I try to train all my employees to do this. Don't just throw little crystal shards or little things that's, in the garbage. Go put it in the dirt outside, or go put it underneath a tree or something like that. So really caring about the crystals and the integrity, and not just looking at them with dollar signs, is extremely important. And that retail store was very successful. Eventually, we gave up the retail store, and we wound up giving it off to somebody else who's running it right now. And it's doing well. So I just don't have time for retail. I'm so busy with from the mines. And I get approached a lot by people who want to partner up with me, and I never partner up with anybody. I don't want a partnership with anybody. I want to just, I'm a different breed of person, and in order for you to be able to partner up with me, you have to be able to digest me. If that's the best way I can understand it. Where do you see the crystal industry going in the next 5 years? This is the question that I wanted to address more than anything else. I've addressed this, I think I did this question about a year ago, same kind of question about maybe over a year ago, but things have changed a lot over that last year. So number one, getting your hands on material right now is harder than it has ever been. And of course it's going to be harder as time goes by, but customs, import, shipping, expediting, all of these things has become a nightmare to deal with. People are bringing in such less quantities of material. I'm bringing in much less quantities of material because we don't have a system in play right now that allows us to import with efficiency. This is not a political thing, it's just, again, it's my business experience. So once Biden got into office, that's when the container prices started skyrocketing. There's been no relief at all whatsoever from the US Customs. Everything is just a terrible, terrible mess. And if you import, you're with me. It doesn't matter who you are, what you believe in, what you stand for. If you import, you are with me on the fact that the government that we currently have in place has abandoned us as importers and is doing nothing, zero, to help us out. So yeah, I think that where the crystal industry is going, it depends on where the politics take us. If no one comes in and starts helping us with import, then I think that we're all in big trouble. I think that the supply and demand is like extremely, extremely offset. The demand is through the roof, and the supply is a drip. And that's why we see tremendous amounts of fake material and mislabeled material coming out of places like China and Indonesia and Pakistan and things like that, where they're so desperate to sell the material that they're just making up narratives. You're not going to get that from me. I wouldn't be able to go to sleep at night. So you'll always get honesty and integrity out of me personally. You don't have to believe that if you don't want to, but that's my promise to my client. I will never mislead my client, no matter what. Like I said, I don't see dollar signs when I see crystals. I see an opportunity to bring that into the light of the world. Wholesalers are going more into the retail. Retailers are just getting kind of bumped out and falling off the map left and right. Having a crystal shop is extremely difficult nowadays because the competition is endless. But I think crystal shops are maintaining and doing well enough because I do believe that the crystal industry is one that you need to experience, that people want to get their hands on it and experience it. So I do think that having a crystal shop and a crystal business or a metaphysical shop, brick and mortar, I think is still safe enough. You're not going to be killing it like you were 3 years ago. But like 3 years ago, I used to tell people, quit your job and open a crystal shop. You're gonna make $100,000 this year. Right now, if someone came to me and was like, I'm opening a crystal shop and quitting my job, I'd be like, don't. People come to me all the time, well, I'm opening an Etsy shop. Don't. Etsy is the devil, excuse my language. And if you're watching this and you have an Etsy shop, let me just maybe try to open your mind up a little bit, because sometimes people have been doing Etsy and that's what they do, and they take it as a slight, like as if I'm trying to slight them or to try to insult them to some degree by telling them that don't do Etsy. But here's the way that Etsy works. Etsy does not bring you clientele. The only way a client is finding you on Etsy is if they just so happen to fall onto your page. It's not like Etsy is doing anything to try to make you successful. You're just a number. You're one in 10 million people that they don't care about you at all, which they're a corporate business. They shouldn't. But that's not how they were 10 years ago. When they first started, they did care about their customers. Right now, it's just a numbers game. And so if you have an Etsy shop, the only clientele that you would find organically on Etsy randomly and luckily just got to you. The only way for you to actually push your Etsy page forward and to bring clientele to your Etsy page is to take people from your social media and bring them to your Etsy page. So that's why you'll see people posting, oh, visit my Etsy shop, visit my Etsy shop, visit my Etsy shop, right? So, but what you're doing is you're working for Etsy. You have to realize that. You're taking your followers, your customers, the people that you are bringing into the net. You don't have to buy from me. You could buy from anybody on this whole site. And it's something you should really think about because that's what's happening. You're literally offering up your clientele as a sacrifice to Etsy. And again, it's not meant as a slight. It's meant as me trying to say, well, just cut out Etsy. Don't even use Etsy because you're bringing your clients from your social media. Just sell your stuff off of social media. Don't even get involved in Etsy. However you're filtering clients to your Etsy page, just sell there. Etsy's not doing anything for you but stealing your customers and taking a percentage of your profits. I've lost a lot of followers on social media and I've gotten a lot of backlash for what I'm about to say, but I'm going to continue saying it because I mean it. What I care about is integrity. The young people who are getting into the crystal business, flooding the market with misinformation and disinformation. I mean flooding the market with it because they're picking up their information from bad wholesalers, meaning the Chinese, the Indonesians, the Pakistanis, the Indian companies. Those people don't know their product. They don't know what they're selling. They don't care. All they care about is making a dollar, which is totally okay. We're not hating on people for the hustle. People need to feed their families. The real problem we're running into is the lack of effort that the younger people are putting into the business. When I got into the business, man, I would day and night read about crystals and stones, and I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know more than anybody in the world about my industry and about my product. And that doesn't seem to be a thing that's happening like at all. I just think that where the crystal industry is going is in a place of just chaos and disarray, because the younger people who are getting into the industry and taking the industry are not putting the love into it that it requires. And so I highly recommend, if you're a young person in the industry right now or in the business and you are being lazy about it, that you stop being lazy and you pick up a book, or if you have to Google it, whatever you have to do, and really start learning about your product and really start understanding your product so you're not misinforming your client. Because guess what? Once a client understands that you're misinforming them and that you don't know shit and this guy knows more than you just lost that client. So it's your obligation as a business person to know about your industry as well as you possibly can. And so where's the crystal business going? That's up to the young people. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I love you all. I hope this helped, and I'll see you next time.